Hello again. We pick up on page 77 of my read of the book I wrote, Days of Ragnarok, and we left with a cliffhanger last night or yesterday, and today we pick up where that left off. Challenge. It's a good decision not to attempt outrunning the approaching truck. It's obviously built for this terrain and has way more power than our Ranger, even without our loaded trailer. The truck is a deer lease vehicle modified especially for hunting. 2 men are riding in the cab and 2 more on seats mounted in the box. Above the cab are a cargo tray and another elevated seat that with a screen serves as a blind. All 4 occupants look like they mean business. The truck pulls parallel to our loaded Ranger, but on the far side of the grass strip. We keep the Ranger between us and the truck. A bearded man opens the passenger door and, using the truck as cover, speaks in a loud and clear voice. We don't get many strangers out here, much less so well provided. I'm going to have to ask you your names and intentions. His associates in the truck keep their hands clearly below the doors and truck bedsides. I'm sure they are armed and at the ready. I respond equally loud and clear. I'm Jason Connors. This is my wife Anna and her brother Scott. We're taking medicines and supplies to my father Matthew Connors. Is there a problem? At this range, I feel confident I can take out the 2 men in the back of the truck with a sidearm, but bringing the 308 online will be slower. I don't feel ready for this, and thoughts of this being how we will die are overshadowed by my inner cry for God's protection. There's a hollow feeling in my gut. After a slight hesitation, the bearded man replies, "Would that be the same as Matt Connors?" And with a big grin, "The orneriest cuss of a man I ever met? You must be Matt and Cynthia's son. I'm Travis McCann, and these are my sons, Willie, Pete, and Greg. Your dad and me go back a long way in West Texas oil." A sigh would be one of the biggest understatements ever penned. Travis McCann is a friend of my dad's, and his words unlock a lot of caution. With genuine smiles, the men in the truck disembark and join their dad as they walk over to shake hands with Scott and me. A tip of the hat to Anna makes her feel quite special, but it will take a while to recover from the tension of this moment. Please excuse our caution. The blackout has shut down most businesses, but drug runners are still at it. We investigate and run off most outsiders who don't have reasonable business here, and everybody knows everybody in the Big Bend. Sighs of relief favor both sides, and after a cordial greeting, I reach over and zip up the bag I had opened, but not before Travis, Pete's son, catches a glimpse of the 308. "Ooh, that's downright purty. Mind showing it off?" Normally, there would be some caution flags here, but I have heard Dad speak often of Travis McCann, and Dad says he is a man you can trust, and that men like him are hard to find. Besides, he and his sons apparently have left their firearms in their truck. I unzip the bag, pull out the Scar 17, drop the magazine, and cycle the bolt to empty the chamber. "Beautiful," remarks Pete. "Can I see it?" Willie and Greg also seem highly interested as I let them all handle the rifle. Then Travis speaks. "Well, boys, break out your hardware. Looks like we're having us a gun show." Pete hands me back the 308, and with big smiles, the boys pull their right hands up to show in a show of peace, and with their left hand pull pistols from their backs. The guns are upside down in their hands so as not to alarm us. I have to admit, for a second, I didn't know what to make of it, as they lay out an impressive spread of Smith & Wesson 40s and a Kimber 45. Scott and I grin and similarly remove our matched pair of 40s that Jim had given us when we loaded the last of the cargo the night before. Anna just stands there, amazed with wide open eyes. As all us guys grin and admire each other's iron, it is Travis who thinks to get the last laugh. He is packing a Dan Wesson revolver inside his denim jacket and reminds the boys as he lays it on the Ranger's deck, never leave yourself without an exit plan. Now it's Anna's turn. She clears her throat loudly, places her foot on the ranger's tire, and pulls up the cuff of her jeans. From a boot holster, she calmly removes the Ruger SP-101 .38 special revolver that Rita had given her the night before. As she lays it on the deck next to Travis's Dan Wesson, Travis just says, "Well, I'll be dipped. Will you look at that?" All laugh till we can hardly breathe. Travis has been bested by a pretty little redhead, but none is more surprised and proud than me. We probably all need the laugh to help cleanse the pile of adrenaline in our systems. Travis continues the introduction. "Me and my boys don't live at your dad's camp, but we have a place a bit north of your property. We drop by from time to time and are headed there now. Holstering our hardware set a tone that we are well armed for most things that can go wrong regarding people. In the truck is an AR, a deer rifle, and with an extended magazine shotgun, and nothing really special." Travis takes another look at Anna's Ruger pistol sitting on the deck of the Ranger and says once again, "I'll be dipped. You can follow us to your dad's camp, but watch the dust and don't eat too much of it. They always have a good feed for visitors and friends. You know the way from here?" I nod and keep a good distance while we traverse the dirt roads. The dust helps you appreciate surfaced roads. Big Bend is a unique place. In the middle of some of the most inhospitable land that God created stands a small range of mountains with canyons and valleys hosting a bounty of vegetation and wildlife. Desperados from the Old West hid in these holes to cool their trail from posse and bounty hunters. It's rumored that Jesse James came here after narrowly escaping capture while working with the Younger Brothers in Minnesota. It's easy to see that if someone wanted to disappear, this would be the place to do it. From a child, I've been here countless times. The family ranch is 110 acres adjoining Big Bend National Park. Sweet springs of water exist if you know where to look, but trees are scarce. Gardening can be challenging, but Mom has managed to work with the soil to coax it into producing a fair produce plot. I'm not much into working dirt. My interest is hunting mule deer, aoudad sheep, a few elk, javelina, quail, rabbit, and dove, which are just some of the game available. Edible plants grow in abundance, with no reason to go hungry for folks who know what to look for. Big Bend is a good place with a boundary of misery protecting it. Over the years, I've invited many to enjoy hunting and relax at the cabin on our ranch. Scott has joined me several times. There's no electricity, and though other property owners have found ways to run power to their rustic hideaways, remaining off-grid somehow helps the serenity. Returning from a few days at the cabin makes you feel more rested than visiting other places for weeks. It is paradise hidden in the rocks. I can hardly wait to get there, but this visit is going to be nothing like before. This isn't a vacation. Anna is driving, and I'm sitting on a pile of tied-down cargo in back. Leaning forward, I ask Anna, "What did Jim say when he kissed you goodbye?" With a big smile, Anna replies, "Why, Jason, are you jealous?" "No, just curious." I have no fear of Anna's commitment, but I'm curious just the same. He told me to try to make it without him. I swear if I ever responded to one of his advances, I'm sure he would run and never stop. Besides, Rita would skin him alive. It's assuring that Anna never hides things from me. Even Jim's playful antics are always expected, but never taken for more than from a good friend. The Big Bend is prone to the rise and fall of drought. Many have tried to settle here, only to move on to more hospitable land. Passing abandoned buildings as we get closer to camp, more and more of them appear to be at least partially disassembled. Scott is in the right seat of the Ranger with Anna still driving. In a childish fashion, I pat Scott on the shoulder. "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? How much longer? I gotta pee." If laughter is medicine, we're healed, but we will need a lot more of it to spill off today's stress. Travis drives directly to camp. He obviously knows where he's going because the secluded canyon entrance is well concealed. Just before he rounds the last corner and camp comes into view, he begins honking the horn. There are nearly 20 people gathered to meet us as we pull into what looks like the same canyon, but definitely not the same camp. Scott is amazed. Jason, will you look at this? It looks like a city. You can hardly find the old cabin and kitchen. Wow! Anna and I spot Mom and Dad and bolt out of the Ranger, leaving Scott behind. That's right, leave old Scott with the strangers. I can bumble through on my own. Scott loves playing the poor, poor me routine. Several men from camp introduce themselves to Scott. As they thank him for bringing supplies, they quickly unload the cargo and take it in various directions according to what each package is labeled. Only our personal bags and the package marked to Cynthia from Rita are left in the Ranger. Hugs and kisses, mingled with tears, are the recipe of the moment. Calling this a joyful time is a supreme understatement. Mom, wiping her tears, says, "You look marvelous, both of you. I want to hear all about everything since you left Hawaii. We only tracked one day of your trip before coming to camp and have been here ever since. Jim and Rita kept us updated with your progress and messages until the EMP, but nothing after that. Dad has his arm around my shoulder. Son, it's good to have you here. I knew you would take care of yourself, but when things went dark, it got scary all the same. I see you've met up with Travis. He's a good man, but don't tell him I said so." "I heard that." Travis shakes Dad's hand, and as his arm comes free from my shoulder, he gives Travis a hug too. Travis replies, "Shouldn't we save the last dance for the ladies?" Dad pushes him back as they laugh. It's a good day. Mom and Anna are still arm in arm as Mom loudly calls, "Lunch is almost ready. Let's head to the kitchen." There's certainly room for our welcome guests too. Travis, Willie, Pete, Greg. You will be staying for lunch, won't you? She never has to ask twice when offering a good meal. The old kitchen shack is barely discernible as it's swallowed up by the new wing to the community building. 50 people hardly fill the dining area with picnic table seating. Glasses, shuttered windows from a row on each, or glassless shuttered windows form a row on each of the 2-foot thick stone and adobe walls. The end wall has a door, and the far end is the kitchen. Inside is remarkably cooler than outside, and the floors look like concrete. This is the community building, and the largest in camp. The expansion to the old camp is hard to believe. Dad, how did you do all this? Where did you get materials? Pegasus couldn't have brought in all this. My questions are piling up faster than Dad can answer. Dad begins chuckling. "All in time, son. I want to show you everything, but for now, you've been traveling a good way and it's time to eat and get you settled in." Anna sits between Mom and me, while Scott and Dad sit on the opposite side of the table. People begin filling in the seating area, picking up their plates and utensils as they come in. Large serving dishes of food are placed on pass-through shelves from the kitchen area behind what used to be the outside wall of the old building. Efficiency is everywhere. Mom picks up a big bowl of rice with meat and mixed vegetables, while Dad collects a basket of what looks like biscuits. It looks appetizing, but the vegetables don't resemble corn or peas or green beans. The meat is dark, and Scott correctly guesses venison. The bread is somewhat darker than whole wheat, but with a sweet, nutty flavor, and a lot like cornbread. Mom explains the bread is Milo bread, and an enjoyed staple around the camp. Several people from camp come up to the table, introduce themselves, and welcome us. Everyone apparently knows who we are, and that we are expected. I know our presence increases the burden on limited food supplies, but their welcome is genuine. Mom explains to Anna, "We're learning to adapt our diet to indigenous resource. We had what Matt likes to call our deep larder, and stored as much as 3 years' food for 10 people. That was for the two of us, you and Jason, Jim and Rita, and up to 4 more. We had no idea our group would grow to this many. Our new group would eat through everything we had in a little over 7 months. So Matt got all the heads together and we began coming up with solutions. All the food was gone from local grocery stores, and the regular silo grains like wheat and rice were raided quickly, but for some reason they passed up the Milo. Did you know that most of the world grows Milo as a food source? Only in America is it considered livestock feed. It's dark, sweet, and you can use it the same as you would use cornmeal. The men made trips at night to bring it back here and gathered a large supply until it became too dangerous to be on the roads. We don't travel more than we have to these days. Dinner is delicious and filling. As we finish, Dad says, "We need to get you weary travelers to where you can freshen up. Let's get your bags and I'll show you to your cabins. We can show you the rest of the camp and talk later. It sure is good to have you here, and I want to hear all about your journey." We chat while taking our empty dishes to the wash station, clean the plates, utensils, and cups, and put them back on the community rack. Everybody busses and cleans their own, which makes living with so many much easier. Dad is proud of the camp and what it has become. I am blown away at how many new buildings share the grounds around the old camp. Dad, these buildings are adobe, right? How did you do it? I mean, where? What? Dad is enjoying my bewilderment. It takes a lot to catch me speechless. Fantastic, isn't it? And I didn't come up with the ideas either. The walls are stacked stone with adobe stucco. When we first got here, there were only 8 of us. Your mom and me, Fred and Irene Livingston, Harry and Rachel Taylor, Sam Elliott, and his girlfriend Stephanie. Dad remembers those first days like they were yesterday. Retrospect. Matt's account of the first days after the financial collapse. Radio message. We interrupt radio broadcasting to bring you this special announcement from the Office of the President of the United States. Please stand by. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the President. It is my sad duty to inform you, our American public, that after a long deliberation and bipartisan effort, we have not been able to secure necessary financing to support the U.S. Treasury and make further payments against the national debt. In simple terms, America has defaulted on our debt. I join with Congress in asking for calm and order as we continue to seek answers to meet the needs of so many. The audio fades off. The phone immediately rings in my office. Matt, Jim here. Are you listening to this? Yeah, I have it on right now. This is it. Get the plane ready and load the bug out pallets. I'll get things ready on this end and meet you at the hangar. I call Cynthia. Hi, it's me. Did you have the news on? Well, the president just announced the feds have defaulted on the debt. This is no joke. We need to go to camp. I'll be there to pick you up in an hour after getting some things in order here. Yeah, I know it's bad. I'm sure they'll be okay. Jason's a smart man and will know where to come. Love you too. My next call is to Fred Livingston, plant operations. Fred, Matt. Yeah, I heard. Look, things are going to melt down fast. Can you get Irene here and your stuff to the plane in about 2 hours? We're going to camp until we see how this plays out. Okay, see you there. As I hang up, the phone immediately rings. Matt? Yeah, Harry, I heard. Can you and Rachel meet us at the plane in about 2 hours? We're bugging out, and I'd like you to be with us. Good, see you there. Hanging up the phone again, I dial the outside office. Sally, I'm going to shut operations down. Have security get ready to lock it up. I'm sending folks home to be with their families. You too. Thanks. No, I'll be fine. Look, if things get bad for you folks, get to my house. You know the codes. Be safe. I dialed the number code to tie my phone to the company intercom system. Good morning. This is Matt Connors. As many of you already know, the president just announced the country is in default on the national debt. This is a serious event affecting the stability of the nation and the viability of the dollar. We are closing down operations to allow each of you to be with your families at this time. When normalization returns, We will attempt to resume operations, and each of you will retain your current positions. God bless you all. You are free to head home. Be safe. I go to my office safe and open it for perhaps the last time, at least for a while. From it, I remove a small backpack and a case. The pack contains emergency gear and the case holds firearms. On the way to my truck, I pass an OSI engineer, Gary Wagner. Gary, when you get things organized, head to camp with your folks. You'll have 2 or 3 days before things get really out of hand. Here, take this. I have another in the truck, and it might come in handy. I toss him the pack. Gary replies, Thanks, Matt. I'm headed for home and then to pick up Mom and Dad. We'll see you there. Thanks again. One more thing, I add. Top off your tanks here. There won't be any stations open between here and camp. Gary has been to camp before, and it's good that most company trucks carry auxiliary transfer tanks in the bed. 600 miles is a long way between gas stations. Traffic is unusually light as I drive home. As much as I estimated how social degradation would play out, I am amazed at the slow response. Do others think this is a drill? Can the masses be so naive that what is sure to follow? In any event, I am pleased with light traffic in Houston this morning. Cynthia is waiting for me when I get home. We have planned for this with boxes pre-packed for storage in our safe room. I'm sorry, let me read that again. We have planned for this with pre-packed boxes in our safe room, and others go with us. The safe room isn't as much a vault as it is a storm and fire-resistant room with a hidden entrance through a walk-in closet. Even if you know where it is, it would be difficult to find the entrance. It is a good place to put photo albums and the things that can't easily be replaced. Cynthia's face is already covered in tears. Oh, Matt. She wraps her arms around me and weeps. This is awful. Everything is falling apart and people are going to suffer. What about the kids? We can't even reach them. I don't know that I can bear this. Sitting down with her and her hands in mine, we'll be okay. The kids are in the safest place they could be, and we'll be in the next safest place until they get to us. I'm not sure how, but Jason is resourceful and Anna is strong. They will know where we've gone, and they'll make it. God has put us in just the right place, and his timing is perfect. If we trust him, we'll be okay. I'm even a bit taken at my courageous words and apparent conviction, but inside I'm scared. This is bad, real bad. She takes confidence in my assurance. This morning in my devotions, I read across Nahum 1:7, and it jumped out at me. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. I didn't realize how much I needed that today, but God did. Our truck is loaded in 15 minutes, and we are headed to the airport near Tomball. Cynthia understands now why I've had us practice loading the truck for an event like this. In case of fire, flood, riot, or storm, we pack the truck the same, with the same prepared containers. Practice has been like a fire drill, but this time it's no drill. Streets are not busy, but traffic's starting to grow. We make it to the airport and park near the company hangar. Jim has the plane already loaded, fueled, and warming up. On a business trip a few years ago, we were delayed 6 hours because the airport fuel truck had run dry. It became Jim's practice to top off fuel tanks soon after he lands. Our cargo fits easily. Irene and Cynthia hug, cry, and talk about each of their extended families, while Jim and I initiate exit strategy. Matt, we may have some trouble getting a U.S. flight plan. I expect the FAA to ground all air traffic, so right after you called, I filed my flight plan with Mexico over the internet. It will be in effect in about an hour. We'll file our FAA flight plan after we're airborne. Good thing this isn't a controlled airport. Ignorance is a wonderful excuse. I smile and say, "You're a good man, Charlie Brown. Have you heard from the others?" Jim answers, "Harry should be here real soon." He lives close. Fred has further to go, and I don't know about Sam. Cell phones are down with all circuits busy, so we'll have to wait as long as we can. A horn honks, and Harry Taylor's truck pulls up next to the hangar. Rachel is in the passenger seat. Rachel runs up to Cynthia, and Rita and Harry begin loading their belongings to the plane. Jim and I give him a hand. Have any trouble, I ask. Not much, but we nearly got T-boned at a light. It's starting. Harry refers to the disregard of civil order when people panic. Fred and Irene Livingston pull in next with Sam Elliott following. Sam is single, but brings his girlfriend Stephanie Sweeney. With everything loaded, everyone gets on board, and Jim begins to taxi. Without a control tower, Jim taxis to the end of the runway and electronically files his FAA flight plan. We no sooner become airborne when local air traffic control announces closure of all airports and the grounding of all flights. Jim continues due south. Within minutes, we are approaching the Gulf Coast and gaining speed. As Jim expected, air traffic control calls us directly over the radio with an order to return to our point of origin. Jim ignores the first contact as he sees the water pass beneath us. On the second call, Air Traffic Houston, this is Nancy, OSI. Please repeat last transmission. Jim is stalling. Nancy, OSI Houston. Please be advised, FAA has issued a national directive grounding all civil and domestic flights until further notice. Please return to your point of origin. Air Traffic Houston, this is Nancy, OSI. We will begin our turn. Jim begins a very wide turn to the west. However, the apex of that turn crosses the 12-mile boundary of international airspace, at which Jim radios a message to Air Traffic Control Houston. Air Traffic Houston, this is Nancy, OSI. Please be advised we are no longer in your airspace and will continue our approved ANS flight plan to our base of operations in Mexico, as it will be easier than further complicating your flight jurisdiction. Without waiting for a response, Jim switches the frequency to Airspace Navigation Systems, ANS. ANS is the Mexican version of air traffic control. Rita, seated in the co-pilot seat, comments to her husband, "They aren't gonna like that." Rita's smile says a lot about her understanding of international politics. Jim replies, "I didn't think they would, but unless I miss my guess, there won't be any administration to answer to in the near future. If there is, we can claim compliance with their intent by leaving their airspace. Moving our base of air operations to Baja was a good decision." Cynthia, Irene, Rachel, and Stephanie sit together and share their concerns. They all shed tears intermittently as they talk. Most have lived long enough to draw on experience, but Stephanie is still in her 20s. She looks very troubled. Rachel Taylor tries to calm her by asking about her family. "Stephanie, where were you born? Where were you from?" Stephanie pulls herself together as she answers, "My family is in Colorado. That's where I grew up. We have a vacation cabin up in the mountains. It's kept well stocked, so we don't have to pack much when we go. I'm hoping that's where they are going. I couldn't reach them by phone. All circuits went busy within seconds of the announcement. Getting home was impossible, so coming with Sam seemed my best option. But I sure wish I knew that my family is okay." Cynthia puts her hand over Stephanie's hand and says, "I'm sure they will be fine. I'm guessing they're almost as worried for you right now." Jim has a lot of experience flying through Mexican airspace, and the ANS is familiar with his flight patterns. Nothing is unusual except that he requests a stop at a small strip in central northern Mexico. The diversion is granted. Fred and I squeeze up into the pilot cabin as Jim explains the next part of the plan. There's a small strip north of Ocampo that I've done some work for. When we make approach, we'll be off ANS radar, and they will expect we landed. I'm going to turn off the transponder and make like I was buzzing the strip and say hello. Then we'll divert to JF and offload. You'll have to get to camp from there. Rita and I will take the plane on to Baja. Take it from there. I speak. Pat is coming with Gary. Pat is coming with Gary and his family. He's bringing his radio gear, so we hope to have some communication. If you don't hear from us within 2 weeks, fly over and look for smoke. Smoke refers to using smoke flares to signal green for okay and red for help. Jim and Pat are both amateur radio operators and have discussed frequencies and methods to communicate from the camp to Baja. The original purpose was to provide communication during extended hunting trips, but this will be especially valuable now. Making do. Jim makes his low pass at the airfield near Ocampo and switches off the aircraft beacon. For now, the ANS will think we landed, and the U.S. won't see us, as long as we remain at low altitude. Jim's piloting is good, but following the land contour makes for a wild ride. At least it doesn't last long before we are circling to land at one of our favorite spots. It never set well with me to land a multi-million-dollar aircraft on a grass strip, but JF is an old military airstrip with the advantage of not being on current flight maps. We are on the ground at the southern tip of Big Bend National Park. Camp isn't far. Jim and Rita drop us off at the airstrip, and we use the Ranger to get 4 of us to camp, and then return for loads of supplies we had on the plane and the remaining people. Finally, we get everyone and everything transported and begin setting up camp. Cynthia and I take one bedroom of the cabin, while Fred and Irene take the other. Harry and Rachel sleep on the futon sleeper sofa in the living room, and Stephanie sleeps on a cot behind a privacy curtain. Sam draws the short straw and takes up residence outside in a tent. Accommodations are rough, but after the long, hard day traveling, we are just glad to be here. Sleep is so good, but it comes slowly to weary souls concerned for loved ones. Morning comes with little motivation. There is a lot to do, but no energy to do it. Overwhelmed is a better description. Have we made the right decisions? Did we overreact? I take a battery-powered all-band radio to the top of the ridge to try to get some news. We feel cut off from the world and aren't sure if that is a good thing. The radio doesn't pick up U.S. broadcasts, but I find a few foreign stations. Night will bring better reception. Breakfast is quiet considering we are all good friends. We share small talk, but most of us are thinking, wondering, praying for those who aren't here. I don't remember what we did the first day. Not much, I think. It's all so different than we thought this would be like. This is all new ground, and we're all surviving on prior guesswork. I hope we guessed right. Evening and night come again as I make trek back up to the ridge with the radio. Today marks the second day following collapse of the US dollar, with widespread instability felt in countries around the world. None quite so evident as in the United States itself, where disturbances erupted almost immediately in poorer sections of major cities. All flights in and out of the U.S. are indefinitely suspended by authorities, leaving many travelers stranded. The President and Congress have made appeal for calm during this difficult time, as security forces appear to be doubling up around the White House and Capitol buildings. Meanwhile, Arabs in the streets of Tehran are celebrating what they are calling death of the great Western evil. Though it isn't good news, it does confirm we made a good choice in coming to camp while travel was possible. I hope the others are okay. I don't share details of what I picked up from the British news station, but I do tell them that things are destabilizing around the country and that we should stay put until order is restored. The next day, around midday, we hear a truck rumble into our canyon. It's 2 trucks, really. Bob and Lisa Isham are in the first truck with their 3 children, Trevor, Haley, and Amber. Bob brings a small cargo trailer with camping gear, Lisa's gardening tools, and 4 dairy goats. Behind them are Alan and Christy Duncan with their son, Riley. Alan is a welder with OSI, but left his work truck behind. He drove a different OSI truck without the mounted welding equipment, which gives him more cargo space. As he gets out, I ask, Alan, glad you made it. Whose truck is this? Alan has been anticipating my inevitable question for over 500 miles and has an answer all prepared. Why, it's got your name on the door. It must be yours. Then I spot what clearly are 3 bullet holes in the rear fender and ask, and how did you manage to get holes in my truck? Someone out there must not like you. I'm glad your friends are bad shots. Later, with Christy and Riley out of earshot, Alan tells me they were nearly ambushed outside of Hondo, east of San Antonio. They traveled side roads by night after that. Today was the end of the last night's very slow drive. They came at us from an overpass. As we approached, I saw part of a truck parked on the far side, and it didn't look too good to me. We hadn't met up with Bob yet, so being alone, I crossed the median and drove up on the on-ramp on the other side. As soon as we crossed over, there they were on the other side of the highway, waiting for us to pass through. When they saw we crossed on the wrong side, they opened up on us. Sure glad they were lousy shots. We saw Bob a few hours later, and we've been traveling together since. I just told Christy and Riley they were shooting to make us stop, but not actually aiming at us. I guess I almost lied. They got close. Our camp population doubles that day, and as we think our limit has been met, the next day brings 14 more. Among those are the wagoners with Pat's ham radio equipment. Gary thanks me for the emergency backpack I had given him when we left and returns it still intact. Better to have than need. I feel better that he had it with him. How are we going to fit all these people in one tiny deer camp? People are sleeping in trucks, tents, and under tarps. We have to call a meeting of minds. We meet in the evening as the heat of the day passes. As we talk of the challenges, 12-year-old Brendan Wagoner says, we're like the Pilgrims. When they built Plymouth Colony, they built one big house to fit everyone until each could build their own house later. That's a good idea, but how can we build it? Our cabin took several years hauling materials on each trip before it was done, and this is a small cabin. It's Riley Duncan, also 12 years old, who comes to our rescue. Why not use mud like they do in Africa and Mexico? Out of the mouths of babes. We have engineers and plant managers among us, but the answer we needed comes from 2 12-year-old boys. We modify their building method and start a stacked stone structure with adobe plaster for stability. With everyone lending a hand, it takes our minds away from thinking about family and friends. Being extra tired at the end of the day also helps, but everyone has moments when sorrow gets the best of you, either by not knowing or from knowing about trouble near one's home. We help each other, and strength grows within our numbers. Pat Wagoner unpacks and sets up his ham radio for an attempt at contacting Jim and Rita in Baja. He says reception is best at night, and that he will try to make contact that evening. Construction of the community building is coming along, and the walls are nearly 6 feet high as a plan hatches to scavenge roofing from abandoned buildings near us. We grow to over 40, but each new hand is appreciated because it makes the work go faster. That's better than seeing people as just more mouths to feed. We don't start out this way. Some of our camp meetings give example to the fears and uncertainty we all share. An ace in the hole is the fact that both the deep larder and the camp belong to Cynthia and me, so we have final say over who stays and who doesn't. That helps, but we need something more if we are going to keep these folks together. As more people arrive, the question comes up regularly when our lifeboat will be full. I really grow to hate that analogy. Each of these people are friends, co-workers, and family. Which can we even think of sending to their inevitable death? On the other hand, can we survive here with such a large group and limited resources without a miracle? The answer is no. Cynthia finally brings understanding that each of us can grasp. She says each of us has braved the elements, distance, and social breakdown to arrive here. None of us could have made it without God's help and intervention. Since all arrived by God's helping hand, We must trust that same hand to provide for our feeding, our needs. We should spend our time praying instead of complaining, and He will take care of us. I think I know why God says pastors should be men. If women like Cynthia begin to compete for those jobs, men might not have a chance. Cynthia sure lays it out strong to the group. Our problem-solving sessions are very productive now. Camp is a safer place, but not much on comfort. Among the supplies people bring, we cobble together some tents, but we eat in shifts, sleep in shifts, bathe in shifts. Well, you get the idea. It isn't going to last long the way we're going. One problem is motor fuel. Most have empty tanks, and now we need fuel to make foraging trips for building materials. It is perfect timing that Pat makes radio contact with Jim and arranges for a fuel delivery from Baja. Mexico still has a working economy, even without U.S. foreign aid. It's a struggling economy, but Jim is able to barter legitimate air service for supplies. And he brings us 4 drums of number 2 diesel and a barrel pump. His business use of the plane to ferry cargo to small communities provides a perfect cover for his diversion to South Texas. By draining what is left in all the trucks, we have enough fuel to get one truck to where Jim can land the plane. Once we get fuel, we use the Ranger as a scout vehicle to locate where we can scrounge roofing tin to cover the community building. And a sense of accomplishment grows as we build, and it helps us through the dark days, knowing that our community must be going through, or what our country must be going through. There is a problem with our scavenged building materials. The arid climate in the Big Bend is tough on wood. All the wood we scrounge is so dried out that a nail splits it right in two. We have better luck tying boards together than nailing them. Good thing, too, because we have no nails. To make shutters and doors for the huts, any hope of a tight fit is futile. A cat can walk through a closed door. Good thing. We don't have any cats. We also scrounge for food. The longest travel is to a scout camp. The longest travel is to scout a group of grain silos. All of them are empty except one. It holds grain sorghum. Most people call it Milo. There must be 2,000 pounds of it. By night, we begin trucking pickup loads to camp. It takes all night to make just one trip due to avoiding main roads and employing tactics to prevent being followed back to camp. That's where Travis and his sons save us. That man knows logistics. He knows how to cover our tracks and how to fend off attacks before they happen. I never understood what a rear guard was before, but I do now. There are still a few 100 pounds remaining when Willie and Greg meet us on the way back to warn us of a well-armed ambush waiting at the silos. We decide what we have is enough and leave the last of it. Stephanie Sweeney is a godsend too. She spots edible plants and food sources we never would have identified. Between discovering the bounty of Milo and her finding wild food sources, our deep larder is effectively doubled. So much for the lifeboat doctrine. Recounting these days to Jason leads me to realize how stressful the unknown can be. Most believe it is difficulty that creates stress, but we found adversity unifies our group. There is no time to play politics with people sleeping on the ground, and there is too much work for anyone to manage it all by themselves. The women organize what supplies we have and add them to our deep larder, though it doesn't seem too deep anymore. Our first huts used tarps to keep rain from collapsing the roofs, but we found a way to make cement, and we've coated all those now. With rain so scarce, it doesn't get tested much. And that's where we will end for today, and we will see you tomorrow.